I was standing in my wedding dress, mascara running down my face, staring at my phone screen through blurry tears. The church was full. 200 guests were waiting. The flowers were perfect. The cake was a masterpiece. Everything was exactly as we'd planned for 2 years. But the text message I just received from my fiancé would change not just our wedding day, but the entire meaning of what love really is. Stay with me until the end of this story, because what happened next will restore your faith in humanity. And if this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe so I can share more real stories that matter. My name is Emma, and 6 hours before I got that text, I was the happiest woman alive. I woke up in my childhood bedroom, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains my mother had hung when I was 7. My bridesmaids were already there, champagne glasses in hand, their excited chatter filling the room with joy. This was it. This was the day I'd been dreaming about since I was a little girl playing bride with my mother's old curtains as a veil. Daniel and I had met 3 years ago at a coffee shop. I know it sounds cliche, but he literally bumped into me, sending my lat cascading down my favorite white sweater. Instead of just apologizing and walking away, he insisted on buying me a new coffee, a new sweater, and somehow convinced me to let him take me to dinner to fully make amends. I fell in love with him that night, not because he was devastatingly handsome, though he was, not because he was charming, though he certainly knew how to make me laugh. I fell in love with Daniel because when I talked, he listened like every word I said mattered. He saw me in a way no one else ever had. Daniel was a paramedic. He worked long shifts, came home exhausted, but never once complained. He'd tell me stories about the people he'd helped, his eyes lighting up when he talked about saving someone's life. He had this incredible capacity for compassion that made me want to be a better person. When he proposed on the beach at sunset, with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother, I didn't even let him finish his rehearsed speech before I screamed yes. Planning the wedding had been a dream. We wanted something elegant but personal. We chose a small church where Daniel's parents had married 40 years ago. We wrote our own vows. We picked songs that meant something to us. Every detail was infused with our love story. My dress was simple and beautiful, with lace sleeves that reminded me of my grandmother's wedding photos. Daniel's suit was classic navy blue. We decided on sunflowers for the bouquet because they were bright and happy, just like how he made me feel. The morning of the wedding was chaos in the best way. My mother was crying happy tears while trying to pin my veil. My maid of honor, Rachel, was attempting to steam wrinkles out of the bridesmaids' dresses while simultaneously answering calls from the florist. My little sister kept sneaking bites of the breakfast pastries and leaving powdered sugar fingerprints on everything. It was perfect chaos. It was my family. It was love. Around 11 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. My heart did that little flip. It always did when I saw his name on my screen. We'd agreed not to talk on the wedding day until the ceremony, wanting to preserve that magical moment when we'd see each other at the altar. But here was a message. I smiled, expecting something sweet and romantic. Maybe telling me how excited he was or how he couldn't wait to call me his wife. But when I opened the message, my smile disappeared. The text read, "Emma, I need you to know something before you walk down that aisle. Please read all of this. I'm at St. Mary's Hospital. There was an accident on Route 7 this morning, a terrible one, a family, Emma, parents and 3 kids. The paramedics called for all available units. I was already in my suit, about to head to the church, but I couldn't ignore the call. I'm so sorry. I know what today is. I know everyone's waiting. But when I got here, the little girl, she's only 7 years old, Emma. Same age as your sister, was in that photo you love. She needed emergency surgery, and they needed my blood type. It's rare, AB negative, and they didn't have enough in the blood bank. I'm getting blood right now. The surgery is happening. Her name is Sophie. My hands started shaking. I read it again and again. My bridesmaids noticed my face had gone pale. Emma, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Rachel grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with concern. I couldn't speak. I just handed her the phone. She read it, her expression shifting from confusion to shock, to something I couldn't quite identify. "Oh my God," she whispered. The message continued. "I know this changes everything. I know you might hate me right now. I know 200 people are waiting at that church. And this is supposed to be the most important day of our lives. But Emma, I looked into this little girl's eyes and I saw your sister. I saw every child who deserves a chance to grow up, to have a wedding day of their own someday, to fall in love, to live. The doctors say my blood could save her life. How could I walk away from that? How could I stand at that altar and promise to love and honor you, knowing I'd let a child die because I had a party to get to? But I need you to know this. If you can't forgive me for this, if this is too much, I'll understand. You deserve a husband who will always be there, who won't miss the most important moments. I'm so sorry. I love you more than anything in this world, but I couldn't let her die. The surgery should be done in about 3 hours. I don't know what to tell you to do. I just needed you to know the truth. I love you, Emma. Always, Daniel. The room fell silent. All my bridesmaids had gathered around, reading over Rachel's shoulder. My mother came in, took one look at all of us, and knew something was catastrophically wrong. Emma, sweetheart, what happened? I told her. My voice cracked with every word. When I finished, she sat down heavily on the bed, her hand over her mouth. For a long moment, nobody said anything. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. The wedding was supposed to start in 3 hours. That selfish bastard, Rachel finally said, her voice tight with anger. Emma, I'm so sorry. On your wedding day, he couldn't have called 911 and let someone else handle it. But my little sister, Lily, who was supposed to be my youngest bridesmaid, spoke up quietly. But he's a paramedic. That's his job. That's who he is. It's her wedding day. Rachel shot back. This is supposed to be about Emma. I looked down at my wedding dress, at the lace sleeves, at the veil that had taken my mother weeks to find. I thought about Daniel in his Navy suit, covered in blood now probably, sitting in a hospital giving his blood to save a little girl's life. Missing our wedding, and suddenly, with a clarity that surprised even me, I knew exactly what I had to do. Mom, I said, my voice steady now. Call the church. Tell them the wedding is postponed. Then call Dad and tell him to get the van. We're going to need it. What? Emma, what are you talking about? Rachel looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I stood up, careful not to step on my dress. We're moving the wedding to the hospital. The room erupted. Everyone started talking at once. My mother said it was impossible. Rachel said I was in shock. My aunt said hospitals don't allow weddings. But I held up my hand and everyone quieted. Daniel is at that hospital, saving a child's life. He chose compassion over convenience. He chose to be the man I fell in love with, the man who puts others first, who runs toward people who need help instead of away from them. That's exactly who I want to marry, and I want to marry him today. So we're taking this wedding to him. For the next 2 hours, my family performed a miracle. My father called the hospital and spoke to the administrator, explaining the situation. Surprisingly, she was moved by the story and agreed to let us use the hospital chapel. My mother called the priest, who, after initial shock, agreed to come to the hospital. Rachel coordinated with the caterer to redirect the reception to the hospital cafeteria, which the staff agreed to close to the public. For 2 hours, my brothers loaded the flowers into their trucks. My uncle, who was the photographer, started recording everything, because he knew this was a story worth documenting. We called all 200 guests and told them about the change of venue. Some people complained. Daniel's uncle said it was inappropriate. My cousin said it was tacky. But most people, when they heard why, said they'd be there. They said it was the most beautiful reason to change a wedding they'd ever heard. I arrived at St. Mary's Hospital at 2 in the afternoon in full wedding regalia. The sight must have been something, me in my white dress and veil, followed by 6 bridesmaids in sunflower yellow dresses walking through the hospital corridors. Nurses stopped and stared. Patients in wheelchairs smiled. One elderly woman started crying and said it reminded her of her own wedding day 60 years ago. The hospital staff directed us to the chapel. It was small, simple, with plain wooden pews and a single stained glass window. It wasn't the grand church we'd planned. There was no ornate altar or professional sound system. But when my bridesmaids started arranging our sunflowers around the room, it transformed into something beautiful. Daniel was still upstairs. The surgery wasn't finished yet. I sent him a text, "Look out the window in 30 minutes. I didn't explain. I just waited. The guests started arriving. They filled the tiny chapel, spilled into the hallways, stood anywhere they could find space. The hospital staff, many finishing their shifts, stayed to watch. The priest arrived, still looking slightly bewildered but smiling. The musicians we'd hired set up in the corner with their portable equipment. Then my phone buzzed. "Daniel, Emma, I just looked out the window and saw your dad's van with flowers in it. What's happening?" "The surgery just finished. Sophie's stable. She's gonna make it. I'm so sorry I ruined everything. I'll make it up to you, I promise. We can reschedule for next month. I texted back, come to the chapel. Now. Don't change. Don't clean up. Just come. 5 minutes later, Daniel appeared at the chapel doors. He was still in his navy suit, but it was wrinkled and stained. There was blood on his sleeve. His hair was a mess. His eyes were red from exhaustion and emotion. When he saw me standing there in my wedding dress, surrounded by all our guests in a hospital chapel, he stopped completely still. Emma, his voice broke. What is this? I walked toward him, my veil trailing behind me. This is our wedding day. But I ruined it. I missed the ceremony. You saved a life. I interrupted. You did exactly what I would have wanted you to do. You showed me exactly who you are. And that's the man I want to marry. So if you still want to marry me, I'm ready right now. Tears started streaming down his face. You came here. You moved the entire wedding? Love isn't just about the perfect moments, Daniel. It's about being with someone whose values match yours, whose heart is big enough to hold compassion for strangers. You showed me today that you'll always choose to do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something important. That's the man I want beside me for the rest of my life. He closed the distance between us and took my hands. His were shaking. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. I whispered. We deserve each other. The ceremony was nothing like we'd planned and everything we needed. The priest kept it simple and short, acknowledging that we were in a place of healing and hope, which seemed fitting for a marriage. When it came time for vows, Daniel looked into my eyes and said, Emma, I promise to always be honest with you, even when the truth is hard. I promise to put compassion first. I promise to love you fiercely and to never take for granted the gift of being loved by you. You showed me today what real love looks like. It's not about the perfect party or the perfect moment. It's about choosing each other again and again, especially when things don't go according to plan. I squeezed his hands and said my vows through tears. Daniel, I promise to stand beside you when you run toward people who need help. I promise to support your calling, even when it's inconvenient for me. I promise to remember that our love is big enough to make room for others, to help others, to be a light in dark places. Today, you showed me that I chose the right person. You'll always choose love over comfort, and that's who I want to build a life with. When the priest pronounced us husband and wife, the tiny chapel erupted in applause. Daniel kissed me, and it tasted like salt from our tears and felt like coming home. Hospital staff in the hallway clapped. An elderly patient in a wheelchair wheeled herself to the doorway and threw rice she'd asked a nurse to get from the cafeteria. The reception in the hospital cafeteria was surprisingly beautiful. The staff had helped us set up round tables with our sunflower centerpieces. The cake, which had been carefully transported, sat in the corner in all its four-tiered glory. We ate hospital food alongside our catered meal, and honestly, it was perfect. Doctors and nurses on their breaks joined us, celebrating with strangers who'd become part of our story. The best moment came about an hour into the reception. A doctor approached us still in his scrubs. Are you Daniel? The paramedic who donated blood for Sophie. Daniel stood immediately. Yes. Is she okay? The doctor smiled. She's more than okay. She's awake and stable. Her parents wanted me to find you. They want to meet the man who saved their daughter's life. And when I told them it was your wedding day and you'd postponed it to help, her mother started crying. They're upstairs if you'd like to come. Daniel looked at me uncertain. I took his hand. Let's go meet Sophie. We walked upstairs, me still in my wedding dress, Daniel in his stained suit, followed by a small group of our wedding guests who wanted to witness this moment. In a recovery room, we met Sophie's parents, Dave and Jennifer. Jennifer's eyes were swollen from crying, but she was smiling. When she saw us, she started crying again. You're the paramedic, she whispered to Daniel. They told me what you did, that you left your own wedding to help us. I could not help, Daniel said simply. Can I hug you? Jennifer asked, her voice breaking. Daniel nodded, and this stranger wrapped her arms around my brand new husband and sobbed into his shoulder. You saved my baby. You saved my Sophie. How can I ever thank you? Just love her, Daniel said. Love her and let her have a beautiful life. That's all the thanks I need. Through the window, we could see Sophie sleeping peacefully, her small chest rising and falling steadily. She had blonde hair and freckles across her nose. She looked so tiny in that hospital bed. But she was alive, because Daniel chose compassion over convenience, because he chose to be who he truly was, even when it cost him something precious. Dave shook Daniel's hand for a long time, unable to speak through his emotion. Finally, he said, "You gave up your wedding day for us, for people you've never met." "I gained something too," Daniel said, looking at me. "I gained a wife who understands who I am and loves me anyway." Jennifer looked at me in my wedding dress and smiled through her tears. "You still got married today?" "We moved the wedding here," I explained. "I wasn't going to let him miss it." "That's love," Jennifer said softly. "That's real love." Before we left, a nurse brought in a Polaroid camera and took a photo of all of us together, Sophie's parents, Daniel, and me in our wedding attire, standing in front of the recovery room window where Sophie slept peacefully. It's on our fridge now, next to our official wedding photos. It's my favorite picture from that day. That was 4 years ago. Daniel and I just celebrated our 4th anniversary, and we spent it at St. Mary's Hospital, visiting Sophie. She's 11 now, full of energy and life. She plays soccer and wants to be a doctor when she grows up. Her parents have become some of our closest friends. Every year on our anniversary, we all get together and celebrate 2 things: our marriage and Sophie's second chance at life. People ask me sometimes if I regret how our wedding day went, if I wish it had been the perfect, planned event we'd spent 2 years organizing. The answer is always no. That day taught me something more valuable than any perfect wedding could have. It taught me that love isn't about everything going according to plan. It's about choosing each other when plans fall apart. It's about supporting your partner when they're being exactly who you fell in love with, even if the timing is terrible. It's about understanding that sometimes the most important thing is what's happening to you, but what you can do for someone else. Our wedding wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was messy and emotional and completely unplanned, and was the truest expression of who we are as a couple. We're people who will always choose compassion, who will always help when we can, who will always put love into action, not just words. If you're watching this and you're planning a wedding, or you're in a relationship, or you're just trying to figure out what love really means, I hope our story helps. Love isn't about the Instagram perfect moments. It's about the messy, complicated, inconvenient moments when you choose each other. Anyway, it's about finding someone whose values align with yours, whose heart moves in the same direction as yours. It's about building a life with someone who will always do the right thing, even when it's hard. My fiancé's last text did change everything about our wedding day, but it changed it into something better than I could have ever planned. It gave me a marriage built on a foundation of real love, tested before we even said our vows. And every single day since, I've been grateful for that text message, for that moment of truth, for discovering that the man I was about to marry was exactly who I thought he was. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the best love stories aren't the ones where everything goes perfectly. They're the ones where 2 people choose each other again and again through whatever life throws at them. That's the kind of love worth fighting for. That's the kind of love worth celebrating. That's the kind of love Daniel and I found in a hospital chapel, surrounded by sunflowers and strangers, who became family on the day our perfectly planned wedding became our perfectly imperfect love story.